Hey everyone, welcome in to another daily editorial here on the KE Report. In this daily editorial, we're getting an update from Novo Resources, traded on the TSX under the symbol NVO and on the OTCQX under the symbol NSRPF. I have both Quinton Hennigh, president and co-chairman, and Mike Spreadborough, co-chairman of Novo Resources. Now, this is a follow-up interview to the webinar that took place just last week. We had a lot of questions that came in, and we couldn't quite get to all of those questions. So in this interview, we're going to go as rapid fire as possible to get these questions answered for all of you. If we don't get to your question, or if you have follow-up questions, you can always email me, fleck@kereport.com. I have isolated these questions into operational questions and more exploration questions. We're starting off with operations. This listener, this viewer, wanted to know about capital allocation with respect to the company's $49 million in the bank, $170 million in various investments, and given the fact that Beaton's Creek is now generating positive free cash flow, does this mean that the company is not going to raise equity in the near term for, let's say, exploration work?
Look, if you look at our expenditure, say, over the next 18 months for operations, apart from the tailings storage facility, we won't need very large chunks of capital. So that's a positive. The operation is cash flow positive. Will we need to raise money? At the moment, our bank balance is very good, even with an aggressive exploration program that we want to do over the next 18 months. So we look very strong going forwards. Looks like a successful year next year for exploration.
Okay, thank you. Another quick question here. Do you have enough ore to run through the mill without interruption every month for the next 12 months?
Yes, mine development in the Beaton's Creek open pit is well advanced, the pre-stripping of the waste, so we look very good for the next 12 to 18 months with ore source.
Now, have you found any areas at Beaton's Creek that can be bulk mined to reduce dilution?
Yeah, good question. So I think Quentin's talked about this many times. The ore zone is actually quite visible, and our team's done a great job in being able to isolate the ore zone and extract it. So the team are continually focused on minimising dilution. There are areas where the loads are very close together, and in those cases we will bulk mine, but that's because it's a more economic outcome than trying to take the two zones separately if they're close together.
Okay, here's another question, a little bit off topic. Some mining companies are building solar plants to supply their mines with energy. Is this practical in any way for any of the projects Novo holds?
Look, not at the moment. We've got a diesel-fired power station, which is only about 50% utilised to provide power. If we can get a long runway with mine life, we'll definitely look at opportunities to reduce emissions and greenhouse gases, but probably a 2022 issue.
Okay, now a question regarding Blue Spec. When Blue Spec was sold, one of the reasons was that the ore was refractory and would require special processing that the Nelligine mine isn't set up to do. As you're exploring some of these new areas, looking at it from this production operations light, when do you start to go down that road to see what type of ore it is and if it does actually fit into the mill?
Quentin might add to this, but from our normal exploration activities, as soon as we've identified a good ore zone or mineralisation zone, we'll take core or samples and start the metallurgical test work very early on to make sure it is suitable to our Nullagine mill. But we shouldn't discourage. If there's a great resource, we'll find a way to extract value from it. So we're looking for everything and anything.
Yeah, I might add that with Blue Spec in particular, the metallurgy was more amenable to some of the processing schemes that Calidus is planning to use up at their Warrawoona project. I can't remember the name of the deposits that they have that are refractory but of similar nature to Blue Spec, but they are planning on treating several of their deposits, I believe, in a refractory circuit within the mill. And just so happens that is compatible with Blue Spec. And it was a good time for us to capitalize, get the funds out of Blue Spec, but also give them upside in terms of something they could probably tackle.
All right, now back to the actual production, something that you talked about too in terms of trucking some of the high concentrate gold over that 400-kilometer distance. There are a number of questions asking about security. How would you even do that? Wouldn't that be a security risk? How can you guys, or can you guys answer this and clarify it for us, please?
Oh, look, that'll be part of the arrangement once we get all sorting up and running at Commonwealth and Purdy's. But generally, we don't see that as a big issue. The amount of truckloads that we'll bring across each week will be able to be easily managed. Not an issue for us.
Okay, one final question then. When it comes to the overall operations, somebody noted that at the 52-minute mark of the latest AGM video presentation, Rob Humphreyson stated that 80,000 tons of Purdy/Comet Wells material would be hauled to Nelligine to get 20,000 tons of gold-bearing material after sorting. That implies dilution of 400% and mass pull of 25% from the sorter. This listener notes that this is significant dilution. What can you guys tell us about these numbers?
So over the next 12 months, the ore sorting project's got two phases. The phase that we're going to start later this year is putting the ore sorter at Nullagine, and we're going to bring small samples from all of our deposits to the Nullagine plant and complete a trial so we know fully how the ore sorter works on them, but also how the processing plant will handle the output from the ore sorter. When that's finished, we're going to take the ore sorter and move it right across the Pilbara to the western side and have it at Purdy's and Comet. Well, and we will over 6 months do a more development trial where we'll put through the ore sorter 60 to 80,000 tonnes of product, and that will make about 20,000 tonnes of high-grade concentrate. And that high-grade concentrate will be then trucked across to the Nullagine mill as part of that development process. So there's not a dilution factor. It's just purely the ore sorter will separate 20,000 tonnes, about a quarter of high-grade gold concentrate, and it's that concentrate that will truck across and feed into the mill. Brenton, do you want to add anything to that program?
Yeah, look, those are just numbers that we speculate. Look, it could be that the mass pull, like the amount of concentrate, is smaller than that. We simply don't know, but that's our current kind of high-level plan.
Yeah, it's not so much dilution as we remove the non-economic material, and that's the whole concept of the ore sorter.
Makes sense. Okay, let's move over to some of the exploration work then. There were a number of questions on what's going on with the Christos machine and those assays. I know we covered it early on in the webinar, but we do need to dive into it a bit more. A couple of quick questions then. Somebody read that there is a backlog, which should be cleared by October 1st. Is this true? And also, is the backlog just for the Beaton's Creek assay results that are critical for grade control and permitting?
Yeah, so there's different streams of samples that Novo's generating. Obviously, Beaton's Creek is the biggest stream, but the exploration endeavors that we have, drilling and sampling out in the field, are also streams. The backlog for Beaton's Creek should be cleared out in about 2.5 months. When is it? Or sometime in October. I think the early part of October, it sounds like. Other people have asked me, well, can you do the exploration samples through Christos? Absolutely. That's part of the deal here. Access to these machines is fantastic. It basically means we have all of the needs met, all of our needs met in terms of analytical processing capacity. And there's not too many companies that can say that these days.
Now, when it comes to all of the assays that could be run through here, is the priority going to be this Beaton's Creek material then for grade control and permitting?
Yeah, Beaton's Creek obviously is still priority number one. We have to get all the data back, especially with like the earlier question around bulk mining. There are some areas where we need to know exactly where grade is distributed within the rock package, so the guys can mine it. So absolutely, that's priority number one. But it doesn't mean we can't allocate some of our throughput, some of our analytic capacity to our exploration results as well. So you'll start to see drill samples and other types of samples go through the lab here pretty quick.
Now, what is the general throughput that you can run through Christos lab?
Yeah, the minimum that we've signed is basically, I believe it's 40,000 samples per month in the two machines that are operating, so 20,000 per. But the Christos machine can actually process a considerable amount more. Like, last month in July, we did a little over 60,000 samples through the machine. I think, total capacity for both machines is probably on, I think it's on the order of 80,000 samples, maybe a bit more per month. So we have plenty of runway to work with.
Okay. Now, note here that in one of the recent Novo press releases, you guys said that you've made a number of discoveries near the mill. Some additional color would be helpful here, such as grade, thickness, area, numbers of zones. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, look, Millennium, obviously operator of the mill before us, did a fair job of exploring, but we think we recognize a number of targets that have gone untested. We have about 6 or 7 targets that we're planning on drilling here in the short term with our current drill program. We have about 24,000 meters of drilling planned. Those targets are all of the Millennium ilk. They're lode deposits that would be mineable in a small open pit. Those are usually on the order of a few meters wide, and the lodes can be anywhere from maybe 200 or 300 meters up to 500 or 600 meters in length. Okay, so if you look at the typical pit across the Nullagine camp there, they're usually pits that are a few hundred meters, say 500 meters on average, and they might be 40, 50 meters deep. And the zone that's actually being mined is anywhere from 2 or 3 meters up to maybe 8 or 10 meters in width. Now, we are also doing some drilling around Beaton's Creek, of course. We talked about that. We're doing resource expansion work. We're testing new targets as well at Beaton's Creek. So really, this is a district-wide approach. It's not just focusing on one prize. We're looking for the rock that's going to supply this mill for the next many, many years.
Yeah, and I would also add, we're going to provide an update to everyone in the next couple of weeks on the brownfields exploration that Quinton just talked around the Millagine areas for the market. So people should stay tuned.
Okay, we'll follow up on the back of that. To your point, though, about this vast exploration program, number of different areas, number of different projects. Somebody did note that, look, Quinton, you work with a lot of other companies, a lot of other exploration companies that are using such things as IP, BLEG, and SkyTem. All of these are exploration techniques to further isolate some of the targets and potentially isolate higher grade targets. Are any of these available to be done on any of Novo's projects to help add the exploration?
Yeah, look, Novo employs a lot of the very same techniques, that you just rambled off there. In fact, we have BLEG data across the Mosquito Creek Basin, basically the bulk of the Nullagine district. So we have a pretty good idea where a lot of the highest priority areas and targets are. We've also used a lot of satellite data, like spectral imaging, that helps us identify areas of alteration. We are doing geophysical work as well. For instance, magnetic program. We have a pretty extensive airborne magnetics program that we're undertaking across multiple projects here shortly. Yeah, so the answer is yes, we employ all of the same techniques.
Okay. Thank you. Now, what about the Malmesbury project? Drilling there, any update that you can give us?
Yeah, at Malmesbury, we finished up a pretty detailed mapping and sampling exercise a couple of months ago. We do anticipate putting out some news around Malmesbury here soon because we are looking towards drilling that project later this year. The sampling and mapping has revealed some very interesting things. Basically, a very detailed picture of the structural network that we think is going to develop into a very robust target there. So I'd say stay tuned. Look for news soon.
Okay. Now over to Egina. What updates can you give us on the approvals at Egina? Are you having any problems getting these approvals?
The First Nations, the Aboriginals we are in negotiation with both parties. There's 2 parties. We have 2 groups that basically share the ownership of the station there, the Egina station. And we are looking at a long-term relationship with both parties. So we are working diligently towards an agreement that would cover that entire Egina area and allow us to do a lot of the work that we've talked about, going out and test mining and things like that. The other area, we have the Egina station proper, and then we have the area around Egina as well. That is under the influence of one of the 2 parties. and we have a very good working relation with them. We don't see any issues getting for example, our clearances to go drilling out at the intrusive centers that we found, these sonicotoid intrusive centers up in the northern part of the Egina area.
Okay, thank you. Now, to what extent is Sumitomo still involved at Egina?
We expect Sumitomo to remain a joint JV partner. Look, Sumitomo has had a challenge during COVID with cash flow and otherwise, but they have indicated they'd like to maintain their interest and seem to be keen to remain a joint venture partner with us.
Okay, Mike and Quinton, I guess this one's for both of you. Somebody just wanted to know how the division of roles when it comes to the top of the company is. Who's responsible for chatting with the financiers? Who's talking to the shareholders? Who's talking to the teams? What can you tell us about the balance of power within Novo and how you guys are really separating some of the responsibilities?
Well, look, it's a delight, first of all, to have Mike join Novo. It's an absolute pleasure for myself because now I can focus more on exploration. In just the past week or two, since Mike's joined, I have been party to more of the exploration meetings and fewer of the operational meetings. Basically, Mike and Rob and team are, fully capable to just take the operational side forward. At this point, I lose absolutely no sleep at night. I'm focused on exploration, and that's where my passion is. So, in my view, this is it's not just about operations and exploration. It's about the growth of the company too. We have a lot of things we want to do. Mechanical sorting, certainly part of that. Maybe we got some other aspirations. I think most people that know me know that I want to see Novo become a successful mid-tier gold producer.
Absolutely. Mike, anything to add?
Spot on. Yeah, look, the focus here is over the next 18 months, see how we can come up with opportunities to grow the company. So the focus on strategy, allocating the capital that people talked about before wisely, looking at other opportunities that will come up. So it's going to be an exciting ride.
Perfect. Guys, wrap us up then. Quick little summary, quick little look ahead into what's coming. What should investors be looking out for?
Look, it's about growth from here. We've demonstrated that Nullagine, the Beaton Creek deposit, is now our foundation, and it's really about growth, our exploration. We have a robust budget this year, $12 million. We're testing brownfields targets. We're testing targets across the Pilbara, things like Talga that haven't seen any work for years now. Yeah, this is an exciting moment because this is the first time we've been able to spread our wings and feel very comfortable about aggressively pursuing things as a producing company. Okay, this is a growth story from here.
All right, guys. Hey, it was a big change this year. You guys are producing now, right? And I recommend everybody who didn't have a chance to listen to that webinar, either live or recorded, I'll post a link below this interview to that webinar so you can listen to the full one. Again, these were just some of the questions that were left over after we took a lot of questions throughout that webinar. So if anybody has any follow-up questions, please email me, fleck@kereport.com, and I'll get Mike, I'll get Quinton back on the show to address those. Guys, thank you again for your time.
No problem. Thanks very much, Corey.
Thanks, Corey.